Hey, everybody. So I'm going
Hello.
to say hey to everybody in the chat, and then I'm going to introduce everybody, although you can see who they are. But we've got one more person on the way. We've got Bunky's Garden is in here. Hello, Bunky. Hey, Gwen, Broke Cowgirl. Jamie's Country Living. Hello, Holman's Homestead. And Lisa Colovi, as always, is here. Thank you very much. Bland's Promised Land Ranch is here. Hello, listening in. Tomet on the Plant. Hello. Kentucky Sustainable. Hello, hello. So what we have for you tonight, hey Green Granny too, Denise Purcell. What we have for you tonight is a little homesteading chat panel. And on the panel, we have next to me, Katie at Mayfield Ranch.
Hi, everyone.
Next to her, we have Glenda with Grace and Fire.
Hi.
Down below Glenda, we've got Rich at the Old Swedes Farm.
Good evening.
And next to him, we have Glenn with the Cow Emporium.
Hello.
And then Sarah with a Homesteading Hustle is hoping to be able to join us tonight, and we will see how that goes. For those who may not know who you are, I'm sure that people do, but just in case people catching the replay don't know who you are, why don't each of you just go ahead and say a little bit about yourself and your channels, and I'm sure Lisa Colovi will get those links put in because she is the bomb. Katie, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start. So my name's Katie from Mayfield Ranch. Gary and I have a 5-acre ranch here in Northern California. So we have a small little homestead. It's a little different than a traditional homestead. We have a lot of rescue animals. So we don't raise animals for meat, for consumption. We do have a lot of chickens, and of course we take advantage of those eggs. But we have 5 acres and several different animals. So we've got donkeys, chickens, goats, birds. So a lot of chickens, ducks, geese, a couple of goats. We have a potbelly pig named Charlie. So not quite as cute as Norman, Lisa, but he's a big boy out there. And then, of course, dogs, cats, all kinds of animals here. We have a pretty good sized garden, so I do a lot of garden tours. Try to preserve as much food as possible, and learning techniques for preserving, canning. Do a lot of dehydrating, things like that here on the channel.
Awesome. Glenda, you want to go next?
Absolutely. Well, I'm Glenda, and I'm from Grace and Fire, and I am an urban homesteader. I live inside the city limits. I have been gardening for well over a decade, both in ground and raised beds. I wasn't identified as a homesteader until probably about 3 years ago when I met others, and I went, okay, so I am an urban homesteader. About 3 years ago, my neighbors asked me if I would like to have chickens, and living in my city, they are not allowed. And that's what I told them. I said, I'm not allowed to have chickens. But my neighbors live in the county and they have farmland, and they have allowed me to put chickens on their property, which is about 15 feet off my house. So it looks like they're actually on my property, but they are not. So we now have 8 laying hens, and I'm expanding the flock later this year.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. Glenn, you want to go next?
Okay. My name's Glenn. My wife is my computer person for the Cow Emporium, but live on it's a family farm. We're pretty well into cattle now, and it's been in the family for over 100 years. And we used to be a mixed farm with a lot more grain, but then we kind of moved into cattle, and that's our bread and butter is raising cows, and we have some pasture, and we garden and raise some chickens, and we do a lot of stuff with cows, and that's kind of our thing. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, and calving season is approaching quickly.
It sure is. Yeah.
I'm going to pray for good weather for you.
Thank you.
How about for you, Rich?
Well, thanks for having me on tonight. I'm the other half of Rich and Holly. Usually my thing at the bottom says Rich and Holly. Holly's enjoying some quiet time. She's been working a lot, so she's enjoying some quiet time with some crochet needles tonight. So we don't have the big land like Glenn and Annette do. We've got a nice little 3-acre spot out here in outstate Minnesota, and real quiet area, beautiful. We love it. But our channel, a lot of gardening, a lot of chickens. We've got 60 hens right now, trying to get everybody through winter here. We still got a couple feet of snow on the ground. We just ordered today 40 more chicks that hopefully will arrive somewhere in early April and get to start it all over again. So we have a lot of fun, but a lot of gardening, a lot of chickens, hoping to add an orchard and grow the gardens this year. So thanks for having us on, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to all of you for coming on. So one of the thoughts that came to my head last night, and I know Glenda had saw that, but it was about being creative with what you have as a homesteader. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know that Rich and I, in particular, because we've talked about this on many occasions, have some pretty particular views on things like that. But I'm just curious what the rest of you think about that. Whatever comes to mind.
So, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Linda.
Well, let's say I am an urban homesteader, so I have to think outside the box. And then having the chickens not actually on my property, they live on my friend's property. I can't run electricity out there for heated waters for a permanent setup. So I have a temporary setup where I am able to still heat those waters. And then also with my busy lifestyle, I've had to set my coop and run and all that up so that way it fits my way I live my life, with automatic doors, with cameras, so that way I can check in on my girls should I not be able to be at home. I have had to think outside of the box, and I'm probably the only one right now in my subdivision that has a really big garden. So I'm always out there gardening, and just trying to be creative with that space and thinking about growing up and not out, because I don't have as much land as if I were to live out in the country.
That's a good point. Katie?
I was just going to say being creative with time. So one of the biggest challenges I have is, Gary and I both work beyond full time. We have rental properties that require me to spend some of my off time there. So being really creative about, as you guys know, having a garden, even a pretty small garden, can take a lot of your time and attention for preparation. So trying to be creative with the time that we have and make the most of it. And for me, what that often means is it doesn't look as pretty as those Pinterest gardens, or, it doesn't look as pretty all the time. But as long as I'm producing quite a bit of food and we're able to preserve that food and, of course, share with all our neighbors, friends, and family, that's what works for us.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Both of you have raised some really good points. How about for you two gentlemen?
Go ahead, Glenn. Take it away. Then I'll throw in my thoughts where I think Lisa might have been going. So,
well, sometimes there's kind of an in-between size that doesn't work as good as being really big or being really small, and we're kind of at that in-between size. Sometimes I wish things were smaller because they'd be a little bit easier to kind of hang on and keep everything in line. But there's obviously the economy of scale, and when you're on the in-between size, you're just not big enough to kind of make it go because you're not big enough. But then on the other hand, you're too big to take it down a notch because you're trying to make your living off of what you've got. So, I mean, having it as like a portion of something else is sometimes better than just 100% being all in too. It's nice to spread your sources of income around, and then if you do have a bad year with one thing, then something else kind of takes up the slack. At least that's the plan anyways.
Mm.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Lisa, I don't know if you were talking about, how we do or how I do things. I creativity and trying to be fiscally responsible on things. Um, I'm one to figure out what the plan is and then try to fund it, thinking last summer what we really need and then throwing a little bit away each month so that we've got the money for it, and then not doing it on the cheap. There's so many different ways to do it, and I'm gonna explain my way and not hopefully it doesn't come across like I'm putting down another way, but
No.
I'm not one to grab 4 pallets and try to do something on the cheap. If I'm going to do something, I don't want to have it break or be poorly constructed. I want to do it once and then not do it again in 2 years and then again in 2 years. Or people, will do the pallets for their chickens and stuff. You know what? We spend a lot of money to build Fort Knox on for our chickens, the outdoor coop and the indoor coop. And tonight it was a perfect example. I got a text from the gal across the street, and she said, "Hey guys, there's some sort of mystery animal walking down your driveway, and I saw it take into the lane. We've got a lane carved out of the snow going to the pole barn." So I turned the light on and kind of was watching to see what we know. We have a mystery predator out there. But then finally, I just turned the light off and said, "Holly, you know what? We got Fort Knox out there. There is nothing that's going to get in there because we spend some money. Each one of those hens, we sell eggs. So each one of those is worth about $100 a year in just the eggs that they lay. So for me to invest an additional several $100s in a coop makes total sense." I do see people on Facebook, especially, "Hey, look what I threw together." And it's like, ooh, you know what? Every one of those hens, all it takes is one raccoon or something. You've lost. You're back to square one, and I never want to do that. So I don't know. I'm one to save and then do it right, do it strong and sturdy, and I don't know if that's creative, but it's kind of my way of doing it, I guess.
It is creative because you're protecting your investment, and that's, I agree with you. I mean, our chicken coop is like Fort Knox. Now, of course, when the dog attacked them, they were out free ranging. That's why it got them. The ones that got away were the ones who were able to get into the coop and get up on the taller roofs where the dog couldn't reach them. Because we have regular size doors for our coops, because it's made so that you can walk into the indoor run and then walk into the coop without having any reaching through doors and all that kind of thing. It's sort of like your setup, Rich, where you have a large door going in and out.
At night, my chickens are in Fort Knox. During the day when they free range, you know what? The hawks, the cars, the fox, the whatever, I can only protect them at night, really. So
Yep, same here, and we have a fox that is now hanging around here, and it walks around the coop, but it can't get in. It can't get in. I mean, it would have, obviously there's always a chance, but I don't think it can, because we've got the wire dug down so deep in the ground, and we've got the J wire and all that kind of stuff. It's built like Fort Knox, So, but yeah, it's protecting your investment, like you said, because the girls are worth something because you're using them as from a business side of things.
And
I'm just
the
going to go
other
to
side, just to switch over to the garden, we put down garden fabric in one area, and yep, there's an expense to that. But what Katie was saying really resonates. There's only so much time, and all summer, you know what? I love Holly and love being around her, but for us to spend our evenings weeding, that romance only goes so far. So
oh yeah. Yeah, I just get ugly when I weed, so you wouldn't want to be near me.
And there's only so much you could do. I mean, I spent days and days and days out there weeding, and we've got raised beds. So, in theory, that should be a lot easier to weed. Still couldn't keep up with it.
It's a lot. It's crazy. I'm going to go to the chat real quick. Hey, Nancy, our treasured home. Hello, Strange Reality. Hey, Andy, Brooklyn's Honeybees. Ariella, Viking, Venture, and Victuals. Hello, hello. I hope you're doing well, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's about, when we started, we used what we had. And so what we had was the existing chicken coop with the indoor run. It was not set up to be a run. They stored hay in it and instead had the chickens go out the back part of the coop, which is something you don't usually see, into a run area. Then there was the turkey coop was behind the chicken coop that we have, and that also housed chickens. Then our grain building that people often see, and the second grow out coop was like where a mini horse was and goats. So we use all of those, and then Sherman and Grant's house was actually closer to the road here. I don't even know what they used it for, but we decided to move it and use it because eventually they're going to go. I mean, our goal is to get a barn and put it up. But for right now, it was use what we had because it was easier to take an existing building and strengthen it up versus buying all new lumber. And that just allowed me to be impulsive and buy a bunch of pigs that I wanted. So, but mind you, I did all the research before I bought the pigs.
Yeah.
I did do that. And then I think the only thing that we did build was the pig barn for Eleanor and Fiona. We built that, whereas last year we bought that other one on an auction. But again, that was a steel calf shelter that came with a roof, and all we had to do was side it, and we had all the siding. So, but at least we've made it all functional, I feel, and I feel that we have made it all look fairly decent, so to speak, because everything, I don't want to say matches because I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be Garanimals, but you get what I'm saying. It looks like a cohesive unit of different buildings versus me slapping the free red siding, the free purple siding, the free, all that kind of stuff. Just try to make it look somewhat cohesive. Hey, Eric Wildman. Hey, Callie Homesteading with Pooh Bear. So, I mean, that's the thing. You often come across things. For me, when I hear creativity, I think of, you have to be creative with time. You have to be creative with money. You have to be creative with your animals and all the things that you're doing. But then I also think about creativity with finding the time to do it all or finding the funds to do it all. I mean, I think it all ties together. What do you, I'm drawing a blank on a question, so help me out.
One thing we did with our chicken coop that saves us, a little bit in the summertime, we took the roof, like it's got a tin roof, and we just put an old eaves trough on it and a water barrel in behind where the chickens aren't, and then it's rigged up to a float system, and then just waters the chickens. And I mean, you've got to clean it out occasionally when it needs it, but it saves you hauling a bucket of water there every day. And when we get a dry spell, we can just take a hose and fill up the water barrel again, but it usually lasts for a month, So that was a time-saving thing that's, kind of nice to hook up to your chicken coop if you can.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. That's exactly where I was going. I knew you'd help me out there because sometimes I can't articulate it, but that's like when I put up my water video and everybody says, "Oh, you're hauling water." And Glenn, I know you'll relate to this. Hauling water is actually easier than me fighting with buckets here.
Yes.
I pull up to the town water thing. I put my quarters in. I get, my load of water just for the day because I don't want my tank to freeze.
Yeah.
And my hose has been drained. So for the most part, except when it's frigid cold, I try not to go below 25. I just make them last another day. But it's actually easier because I'm having a hose more often than I normally would in the wintertime. And it's all because I'm backing a truck up.
Yep.
Versus me carrying, what are the stock tank? I think I have to have 14 5-gallon buckets to go in there.
Wow.
That's a lot to be going down there every day with buckets of water. So it's actually not that bad.
we do need to carry water every day, especially during the winter. You know, there's no way to have a hose out there to the barn. So with our cold weather, it is 20 below. Oh, the girls are out of water. Let's, fill up the bucket, the old milk cartons and bring them out. Bring out 3 gallons and fill it up. So it's what you do.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. Glenn, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's just no way around that in the wintertime.
Yep.
Nothing's automatic with water in the winter.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah, I guess that's a challenge you guys face that I don't quite face. We face the freezing pipes, or the hose will freeze, but after an hour or so, it'll clear up and I'm able to change all the water. So it makes it a little bit easier out here with this weather.
Hey, Ark Wildman. Hey, have a good evening, Holmans. Hope you guys feel better. Hey, Sarah, Homesteading Hustle. Yeah, Ark Wildman said he catches rainwater for the dry spells to water livestock. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've seen rain since last spring. And that's, since Hey Barb's Country Home, since the hail that came along with it. Other than that, that's it. So we have blue skies for the most part every day. It's crazy. I think I missed somebody in the chat. I just want to go back. Funky's Garden, Barb's Country Home. I got everybody. Go ahead, Glenn.
Just had a question for some of the guests. Like, what generally, what do you guys use for bedding for your chickens? Like, what do you have available to you? When you're in different parts of the world, I'm just wondering what you use.
I use straw often when I can. So I kind of use the deep bedding method. So we've got the chicken coop, and then we've got a chicken run, which we don't use the chicken run much other than it's the hallway for them to get outside really for their free range every day. We used it when they were little. I kept them in there for the first few weeks until we let them free range. But I mainly use just straw, or we use like the pine shavings. That's what's available for us. There's been a hay shortage this year, so we've been able to get straw, but we've had to be a little bit flexible on the different types of hay that we're able to have access to.
So I probably do things a little bit weird for some people, but I do the sand method in the bottom of my coop. And I like it because it's like scooping litter. You just I have a kitty litter scoop. My coop is only big enough for 8 birds. So it's not a very big one, and I can just open that door and scoop it like kitty litter. But underneath of where the roosts are at, we have a poop board, and we use the coffee grounds that you can purchase now that they're decaf and they're spent. And so we use that to help absorb that smell. We don't have problems with flies. It doesn't stink in that coop, and I'm talking year round. And it literally takes me 30 seconds every day to clean that coop. And for me, time is most important to me. So I use that inside the coop. And then of course in their run, we have 2 runs. So in our little run, we have the sand. And then in the bigger run, we use mulch out there. And of course our girls get to come out in free range, but under supervision, just because we are in a subdivision. So I am concerned. We have dogs that run, so they don't get to free range all the time, just when I'm out there with them.
Glenda, Bland's Promised Land Ranch would like to know, how does the sand method do with water?
I don't have any problems with it because it's inside of the coop. And when the girls come in from the rain, they can dry off. It helps keep their feet clean. I have no problems with that. It dries very quickly. In fact, I have a girl, we've named all of our chickens, so forgive me, but Midnight is our littlest bird. And every time we open that coop to clean, she is right in that sand dust bathing. That's her favorite place to dust bathe.
And we've got a bigger space for ours. We use a chunk of our pole barn, so it's about a 30 by 30 area. So we use straw, and it turns into deep litter. The stuff we're using now started in October, and we've got a good probably 8 inches of compost going right now. And it's really effective. It does, like Glenda said, you know, I'm a big thing on keeping clean my eggs because that's what we're selling. And that straw keeps most of the eggs clean. That keeps their feet clean. It keeps them dry. It starts composting when it was 15 below. It is consistently 28 degrees on that floor because of the manure and the straw mixing. So it's a great way for us Northerners to keep the barn heats itself almost in the winter because they're pooping on it and stirring it up. And but straw for us is gold. Now I literally will have several tons to move in March when the snow's gone out to the garden. Becomes a great compost pile, but it's a big weekend move. Give my back a good workout. So
for sure. We use pine shavings. I use pine shavings, and then in the run I do use straw. I recently was offered to try that hemp bedding. I'll be honest, I've stayed away from it because I just figured it's a little too pricey probably, or bougie. I didn't look it up. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea. So you'll see it when I do a review. But to me, it's just like I go through a lot. In the wintertime, we go through a lot of bedding, doing the deep litter and getting for the pigs. You know, I often post on Instagram, you know, I buy 6-8 bags at a time. And right before a storm comes, I'm down to one bag already because I've put it out for everybody. But we also, the difference is between the turkeys and the chickens. The turkeys hardly spend time in their coop. So their coop really only gets clean like once a year. The chickens, on the other hand, it's like we do the deep litter. But the turkeys, it's like they do all of their nastiness out in the pen, thankfully. Hey, Jason Ilkanarum. So that's what we use too. What are some other ways, I think, because the other thing that I think of is, you know, sometimes we don't have access to tractors. And I'll give you an example of that. Like before we had our tractor, we were buying alfalfa bales. They were 900-pound bales. And, you know, the bottom line is the two of us can't lift it and move it, right? But it's cheaper to buy a 900-pound bale that lasted us 3 months versus like right now we bought smaller bales, and we had 40 bales of alfalfa on a trailer, but it's tying up the trailer now, and it's also tying up the awning that it's under, right? Because we use that as hail protection and other reasons when we put stuff under there. And so, you know, I think about if you don't have a tractor, how are you moving things around? So one of the creative ways that we had to do things without equipment was we use the side-by-side winch, or we back the pickup truck up and Ryan would get the bale kind of teetering. And then, you know, you get creative in how to get it off the back of the truck and get it in a spot. Have you guys had to come across with getting creative with stuff like that where you didn't have tools or equipment?
We had to get creative with storage, so not specifically equipment as far as the tractor, but when we, you know, I was real eager to get donkeys and to get goats. As soon as we got the property, I was ready to go. We had the luxury of being able to build whatever I wanted to build, but we didn't, well, I should say we had the luxury of building small, like small barns, but not a large one. So ideally I'd have a really large barn where we could fit all the animals and have hay storage, but we weren't able to do that. There was a limit of like 10 by 12 is the largest size we can build. So I had a hay storage challenge after we built all these small little 10 by 12 housing structures for the animals. So we did a few things. I bought some plastic storage containers from Lowe's and tried to do that, but it wasn't really watertight. So ultimately I ended up buying a shipping container. And so we're storing our hay in that. I had it modified so that there's some ventilation, but that works really well. And something Rich said earlier made me think about it. You know, you want to build things right, do it right the first time, have to have something that's quality. I'm curious if any of you have things that you do differently. Like for instance, for me, if I had to do it all over again, I'd buy 3 or 4 shipping containers, put a roof over it, and end up making like a bigger barn that was less expensive, but would still allow me to store like all the hay and have plenty of weather protection for the animals.
I think the shipping containers is a good idea. Stuff like that. As you do this, your needs change over time. So if you have something that can be repurposed for something like that, that is, solid and has multi purposes, and and if you can use it like at different times of the year, like our barn, for example, we only calve a couple months of the year, but we can clean it right out and use it for storage the rest of the year to put equipment in and whatnot, because otherwise you've got that money tied up for 2 months of the year instead of like all 12. So, and like with the shipping containers, as time goes by, you'll probably repurpose those for something else. You'll find a good use for them too at some point, and after you're done with them there. So that's pretty smart. And
Glenn, I did like your video where you're in the barn getting ready for calving, and you had a cap over a hole in the ground where you put the post right in, and it's like, wow, that's absolute genius. Just to set things up on the quick. Well thought out.
Yeah, well, if you build all your pens and your barns solid like that, and then it's like I say, there's only 2 months of the year you use it. But if you can just pop the panels and pull the posts, and one thing you do have to cover those holes if you do have cows in there with some wood or something, because you don't want anything stepping in one of those holes. But yeah. Like it won't be a barn forever, but while it's a barn, we might as well do that.
Absolutely.
We're looking at, we don't have big tools. The one, we put down a new surface on our driveway. Just had some gravel brought in. It seems like my girls, what they do is they love going in the driveway, eating all the small pebbles, and then they distribute them around the yard in their droppings. But so we put some extra down on, tons of stuff on our driveway. We got a pretty big driveway. Our neighbor came down with his 4-wheeler and moved it around, thank God. But we just don't have the big toys yet, and didn't want to spend on that stuff. So when we get our orchard going this year, I'm looking to buy some serious sized trees, in the 8-foot range. That's going to have a good root ball. So that'll be a test of how do we do it the right way? A wheelbarrow probably doesn't cut it. So,
sizing your equipment to the job is really important. Like you want to get it maybe 20% bigger than the job you have in mind as far as horsepower and lifting and everything. Because we kind of have the opposite problem with our garden. Our tractor is too big to fit in the garden. So we don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on a little one to run in there, but we've ended up going to like the 30-inch beds and just a rototiller, and like we have a fair sized garden, and we're finding we're able to keep on top of it pretty good without using a tractor in the garden at all, which is kind of nice.
So you don't want to drag a chicken coop from behind the other chicken coop with a John Deere lawnmower? That's what we did when we moved in, because that was what we had. That, and Ryan was using bars for leverage. That's really how we've moved all of our buildings. Between stuff like that, and then there's a lot of colorful words, some chains hanging off and all that. But we accomplished it. He's walking by laughing because one of the things was when we have always fashioned, for lack of a better term, sleds to the bottom of the building so we could move them. And at one point, I think he was just a little frustrated because it was getting stuck. And so he just floored it, and the tractor and the sled kept going and the barn stopped. But we got it in place. A little hillbilly-ish, but we got it in place. But yeah, we run into that problem too with our tractor being too large to get into the pastures with the rake that we have. And then the smaller one is not large enough to handle the job because having smaller areas, we try to rake up the waste from the pigs and we try to keep them clean. Luckily, we have wintertime, so we do have like the parasites kill off, which is a good thing. I think that if we were in a warmer area, we wouldn't be as successful on 2 acres. The cold really does help out in the winter.
Yep.
But I think that it's coming across different things and like figuring out how to do things without the big equipment is definitely a challenge.
Well, I don't own equipment, so I'm going to have a very different perspective. I think chickens and gardening goes together hand in hand beautifully. And there's a big garden, like huge, 30 by 40. I measured it is what we have to garden on. And I don't have equipment to till it up or anything like that. And so for me, I use my chicken manure straight out. Like when I clean that coop, it goes straight out either into a compost or during the winter, I put it out on the ground. But for me, I have to get creative with how am I going to kill the weeds? How am I going to turn soil, turn nutrients in? And for me, I have always used the woven ground fabric. Last year was the first year that I took it up and decided not to use it, just to give the land a break and really start to add those nutrients back into it. So I decided instead of having the big equipment and purchasing that, because it's actually not on my property. So where am I going to store it? I live in the city. It kind of look funny if I had a big tractor next to my city house, So I decided to go ahead and do cover crops. And I planted winter rye, which is great because my girls go out and they eat it. The grass is dead. And guess what my girls are eating on the winter, and they're having that treat. And so this year, instead of turning that soil, I've decided I'm going to go ahead and put a silage tarp down and kill everything off that way. And so I don't have to invest in that equipment. So I have to think kind of outside of the box in that realm. I could get a little tiller, but for a 30 by 40 plot, that's not going to really work for what I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kill it and plant my garden this year. And of course, having those chickens right there, I mean, they go hand in hand beautifully. So utilizing them for some of that as well and using their manure and just
Absolutely.
Going with that.
Absolutely. Somebody, Strange Reality is asking about a silage tarp. They need to Google that. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so it's a 6 mil tarp, and you use sandbags, and it's going to sit down on the land for about 6 weeks to 2 months. And what it does is the sun heats up everything underneath of it, so it will kill off that cover crop, but it'll also kill off the weeds, and also if there's any seeds, it'll force it to germinate and kill it at that point. So that's what it's for. And then there's beneficial bacteria underneath of there, and it helps with the microorganisms and things. So that is what I'm going to be doing this year to help with that garden.
Awesome. There's one area that I think about that I feel I've been creative with, and I don't know, people are going to say that I'm crazy. And again, I think it goes back to I can get away with it because of the winters that we have. If we had warmer weather, we wouldn't be able to do this. But if you notice our land is pretty rough, and year after year, right, with the animals on it, it's changing and it's deteriorating, right? And so, everybody laughs about Sherman and says Sherman's not a mountain goat. He's walking up and down that hill as a pig, But one of the things that I do in the wintertime is when I clean out their houses, I try to compost that stuff and make dirt. And so what I do is when I clean out the houses, I throw all of the bedding down in the areas that I need to fill in. And so typically when we get a lot of snow and moisture in the wintertime, by the spring, it is considerably broken down. And again, I think that I can do that because of the fact that we get so cold. I don't have to worry about a parasite load because I have the feces piled up in there. Because the pigs in reality don't go far from the houses in the wintertime. They don't go all the way down in the pasture like they would in the summertime because the snow is there. They like to go where, their feet are on nice warm dirt compared to the rest of it. So that's one of the things we do. And I looked at it in the fall, and we had meat pigs in our area where the girls are now. And they did their job, let me tell you. They uplifted rocks. They took care of dead trees. They cleared that area. But they also made it really rough if you don't have a tractor to fix it. So in one spot, I've been concerned about it, and I've been building it up the past 2 years, and it's really building up. It's pretty incredible. So I thought that was kind of neat solution.
Mm-hmm.
Am I crazy that I'm doing that? I'm curious.
You're
No,
not
that is,
crazy.
I do the same thing.
If I was in your situation, I'd be doing the same thing. That is not crazy. I think that's a brilliant thing to do.
Yeah,
And
just
now
trying
you've got a real fertile area right there. If you've been putting all that in there for a couple of years, if you need to plant something, there's your spot. You know,
Mhm.
there's some great fertile compost ready to, go nuclear on whatever you put there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because there is a spot between the turkey coop and our feed barn. And that is where all of the previous owner used to feed all their animals. That soil is like black gold. So it's so funny because I can't tell. Every time I have to fill a pot, I'm down there getting that stuff up because it's just so deep. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So we got a couple questions in the chat. So Strange Reality said, do pigs like to eat cover crops? They do. We just have a hard time growing it and keeping up with it because we're so small. So what we do is we utilize 3 pastures and an electric fence in the summer. So we no longer mow the lawn. I just put the electric fence up and let them just keep moving them around and letting them eat it down. The other thing was Strange Reality said, how do you all manage social media comments, making content, and enjoying others' content?
It's
There's
tough.
there's a full-time job.
Yep.
Go ahead, Katie.
It's tough, right? I think it's tough to create content that you want to create. Like I, for one, have a list of a lot of things that I'd like to share, and kind of balancing what I need to get done versus trying to film it takes a little bit longer for me to film something, edit it, put it out versus, for instance, right now, I've got peppers started. I need to get the tomatoes and eggplant started. Well, I didn't film it. I need to get it done. So I prioritize just getting it done and I do try to keep up with all the comments. I have most of the comments on my phone. So I'm able to respond to those just by checking it once a day, maybe twice a day. Try to appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch my videos, like them, share them, leave a comment. I sure appreciate it. So I want to make sure to let them know that I do appreciate that. And I also have a lot of subscriptions of my own, right? I'm keeping up with your guys' channels, a lot of channels. And I was doing pretty good for a while, I think, at keeping up with it. But I know recently, like the last month or so, it's been tough. The busier it gets, the less I can watch of everybody else's videos. And sometimes I'll just try to watch a short and hit like. And if I find somebody that's in a live, pop in, say, hey, how you doing? Just try to show support as much as you can. I think we all are in the same boat there and understand that just because somebody doesn't watch every single one of your videos, they're still a supporter. They still appreciate what you do, still trying to support one another. So I just try to do the best I can. It's definitely tough.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I know for me, I felt personally, because I like to support people, I felt very invested and very obligated in a good way, not in a bad way. But I became very, very cognizant of the fact that it's just not realistic. And I found myself not accomplishing what I needed to do, right? Because now that I'm retired, I'm on the farm business side, I'm not getting anything done.
Yep.
And it's just like, I need to do something more than sit on YouTube all day. I'm just being real. And that's how it became. And it's just like, no, I have to have stuff I need to do. And so I've taken a very far step back. But I think the other thing too is, sharing your stuff and realizing that, the folks that want to watch are going to watch. And then the other thing is, yeah, like you said, making sure to respond to comments. I love questions. I know Annette at the Cow Emporium loves questions. I asked her a question and man, she gave me the best answer ever. And I love it. But I think the other thing too is realizing a lot of us watch videos. We may not always be commenting.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, like I'll sit here at night and watch a bunch of things and then I just forget to go back. How about for the rest of you?
I've got, well, surprise here. Rich has opinions. You know what? I think as far as making content, come up with, you know, really think about what your channel's about. What's your purpose? I've been asked recently to do some things, you know, hey, it's stand on your left foot and juggle 3 balls month. It's this and that. And there's all these things going on, but it really has nothing to do with my channel. And it's disposable. I was trying to think of the right word, but it's like disposable videos. You're going to make one. They might get watched one time by someone, but there's really not a lot of worth to it. And so a year down the road, it's not doing your channel any good. We started throwing out a lot of chicken stuff, just stuff that, you know, figured that that's our focus is gardening, chickens, kind of sustainability. And the stuff that we put out last year about chickens and their growth and tips and this and that, our channel's taken a huge leap in a year because those videos now we're into chicken season again, and all the newbies this year are watching it. Plus it got viewed last year. So I'm not standing on my left foot and juggling, but I'm putting out some good, if you're going to do a channel, put out some good content, but figure out what's your niche, what you're about, and then do it right. And keep that focus. As far as keeping up on others, I think I'm subscribed to 300 channels, and I try to make the rounds, and I do try to comment on everything I watch. If I'm going to go to your video, I will, if you're monetized, I am going to watch the ads. I'm going to watch the entire video. I'm going to comment and like. I'm not going to get in there for 8 seconds because that doesn't do you any good. It gives you a view, I think, but it doesn't do your channel any good, the algorithm, all that, whatever. And I don't understand that stuff, but I'm trying to, you know, the ones that I will watch and I try to comment so you know I'm there, but to make the rounds on 200 or 300 channels, that it could be a full-time job. And literally we've got, you know, 60 chickens and a life, you know, so it is hard. The bigger you get, it's harder to stay connected. That's why I like these lives. You get to see some faces, have some great discussion. But my big thing is figure out what your channel is. If you're new, I forget who asked that, but if you're new, what is your niche? What's your focus? And then stick with it, because you'll start building an audience versus juggling 3 balls. I'm not a juggling channel. I'm not a whatever channel, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was laughing because I used to be subscribed to almost 1,000 channels.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was just like, you can't, there's no way. So I wanted to, that's a really good point. Glenn, do you have any feedback on that, or you totally stay off the social media?
Well, Annette handles the social media end of things. I try and, you know, get some content there. She's got a little bit harder shell than I do when it comes to reading the comments. So I just let her handle it because it gets in my head and I can't do that. I just got to do my thing and she'll tell me if I need to know. But yeah, she has to do that part of it.
I can't imagine you guys get a bad comment, Glenn. Come on.
I'll leave that one alone. I've received comments that I'm not keen on.
So have I. I just say thanks for watching and catch the next one.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I'm going to stand firm on. I will never get into a battle with somebody on social media because it's not worth it. Okay. And my rule of thumb is always kill them with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of thing. I don't have to agree with them, but again, I'm not looking to argue with people because I think that's the worst thing you can do. We'll leave it at that. Just don't know who you're talking to. Let's be real. Okay.
Mhm.
That's just the reality part of it is, but I like when people debate things. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that it's healthy to debate it. It's all in how you write it respectfully. I know that I did a video recently where I talked about the wind chill affecting animals. Believe it or not, I've had comments with people who've said to me, why are you talking about the wind chill? That's not the real temperature. Well, if it's minus 22 and it's negative 47, my pigs can develop frostbite because they are susceptible to wind chill. And I'll get off that soapbox now, but that was, but again, that's how I chose to address it, was by bringing it up in another video and saying that, people have reached out to me and said they don't believe that wind chill affects animals. Wind chill affects people and animals, and so I went into that whole thing. But if you ever notice when I think the reason why some of the comments get to me, especially that one, was because I always give the real temperature with the wind chill. It's not like I'm trying to portray it in a different way. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is what it is, and this is the wind chill. But I think that the other part of social media is also just setting boundaries with it and making sure that, we have our lives too, because I think that's very important, and it can easily become all consuming.
I will say my first video that was a lot of negative, I actually, at first I went, like, and I reached out to another YouTube channel and I was like, what am I going to do? And then I took a step back and I went, wait a second, that's constructive criticism. I have a freeze dryer and my thing was flipped upside down. And I can't tell you how many mean comments I got about my little insert being flipped upside down. And, and I took that personally. And I think sometimes, as creators, we need to take a step back and go, could this be constructive? Because actually it saved me money in the long run, because it was alerted there was a problem. The machine was sent to me that way, and I didn't know my thing was upside down. So I was appreciative in the end. But at first, I went, oh, what am I doing? I messed up. How horrible. Why didn't I, So sometimes it can be a constructive criticism, maybe they just went a little bit too far, I guess.
Well, it's funny because you and I have talked about this, Glenda. I had the same thing. Everybody was telling me the insert was upside down, and I'm like, well, I don't know, because the machine was sent to me like that.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because even when I responded to somebody and said, thank you so much for letting me know, I've since fixed it. Bear with me because I have 2 videos after this where it shows it upside down. And each time they were like, you still didn't fix your machine.
I know. That's why I emailed you privately and I went, I don't want you to think I'm coming at you. This is
fine.
just, but yeah, there are those people.
So Strange Reality wants to know, does anyone have Moran chickens? I'm looking to get some, but I can't find somebody locally because I want a private. I was told to get it from a private hatchery because they'll lay darker eggs. I know that sounds silly, but I'm not
Those
just
dark chocolate eggs.
Yeah, I've heard that they're better than getting them from the commercial hatcheries.
I think that's true. So I tried to get a few of them, but the eggs are just kind of brown, just like my other ones. They're not super dark. Like if you want that really dark color, you've got to try to find somebody that breeds them for that, and they specifically will lay those really dark eggs.
So Barb, you have a cuckoo Moran and they lay dark eggs. That's good to know because I'm waiting for chick days and they said they're going to have cuckoo Morans.
And chickens, if your channel has anything to do about chickens, there are a lot of opinions. The negative stuff is going to come to people like me who keep the lights on all year, who force their girls to lay eggs in the winter. There are some people who chickens are pets. And for us, it is we love our girls, we do, but they are there to lay eggs. That is their purpose on the farm, is to lay eggs. And we have them all year laying. So that's for the pet owners. I'm the devil at times. So
Well, as the pet owner, I don't think you're the devil. So let's just say that, because I am the pet chicken lady.
Yep.
So
I
you're
don't.
not.
I don't think you're the devil either. But I can tell you
Mm-mm.
that I recently posted that after this year's litters, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions about our pigs, and we may go in the direction of registered pigs. Well, I can't keep them all. So, and the reality of it is, you know, I'm still going to have to switch out at some point to, because, you know, they're not going to have litters forever. It's like Glenn doesn't have a cow that's 40 years old calving every year.
No.
How many
Well, I
years you
think-
get out of a cow?
12, maybe 14, but she's pretty old when she's 14. But yeah,
No kidding.
yeah.
Wow.
We try and get rid of them before they get that old.
But I think a lot of those comments just come from people that lack experience, right? If you raise livestock, specifically if you breed livestock, then you're not going to continue to have the same, you know, parents year after year after year, right? You're going to continue to switch those out and make sure you have healthy stock. So I think a lot of times when people have those negative comments, they just really aren't well educated about what it takes to breed livestock.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the other thing too is if, you know, I go to sell them and I can't sell them as pets. Like,
Yep.
you know, now Sherman is a boar, so that's not going to happen. I can tell you that right now. But we're going to have to look for homes for them, so to speak. You know what I mean? But the reality of it is, you know, like right now we're going to try and work with our breeder. Because I know a lot of you know the story about when we got Fiona and Eleanor. Fiona was actually supposed to be Eleanor, and she was too small to register. She didn't meet the breed standards at the time she was born. So I talked to my breeder the other day, and she actually saw a picture of Fiona on Instagram and YouTube and said, let's see if we can get her registered, because she's clearly the same size as Eleanor now. So if I go to sell her, that would help out. But we're going to see how things go this year with the litters, because last year was first, this year is second. It's pretty common for folks to say, okay, the first time mama, give them a break, give them a chance. And then after that, if there's issues, it's time to move on and separate. You have to register a pig to eat it. No, you do not. And no, I won't process Sherman because he is intact as a boar and a male, which means that he's over 2 years old. So he would have boar taint and it would be nasty meat. Hey, Kill It and Grill It, welcome in. But I do know that the IKHR does have registered pork production, because we've looked into it. Just because if you're getting listed as a pork production farm, I guess is the right way to say it. But so we're at like a minute left for our hour, because I do want to keep it to the time to be respectful of everybody. Is it okay if I just throw it out for some questions for folks in the chat?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Anybody in the chat have any questions? I think we answered some, but I just want to make sure that we answer them all. And of course, there's always a delay. Projects with Paul is looking to get chickens. That's cool. And yes, Leanne. Hey, Leanne. People don't know where their food comes from. True.
Yeah.
And if you're new to chickens, we've got a lot of experience on the thing here. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions. Like they always say, nothing's a dumb question. I had some dumb questions 4 years ago. I've learned a lot over 4 seasons, as everybody has here. So don't be afraid to reach out. I think most of us have our email in the About section on our channel.
Absolutely. Stormin Norman is doing great. Kill It and Grill It. He is out there having a blast because it was almost 50 degrees today.
Jeez.
So those who have chickens, do you free range or not? I'll go first. I free range when I'm here, and in the afternoon I wait until they're done laying. Although mine are really mine are a pain in so many ways, but I have to say this: they run back to the coop to lay eggs. It is the weirdest thing. It's so funny. I watch them run back to the coop, and then all of a sudden you hear the chicken song, and then they come running out. But how about the rest of you?
Yeah, I free range mine. So they're in the coop at night. We do have coyotes and things like that that are around at night. So they get put away at night. They're locked in. They're totally secure. And then first thing in the morning, they're out and about. I feed them. They can go lay their eggs when they want. I collect eggs a couple times a day, but they're completely free range. We don't clip their wings or anything like that. They stay right in the property. We do have some friendly neighbor chickens that have moved in. We've got a couple of roosters that I think got kicked out of their family and they've moved in. We let them stay as long as they don't cause any trouble. But we do free range them, and we've had really good luck with that. We haven't had any predators or any issues like that during the day, but we're real careful. As soon as it's getting to be about sunset, just before it gets dark, maybe 45 minutes before it gets dark, we go out, feed them, put them up, and they all the girls come running. They're ready for dinner, and it works well like that for us.
And for me, I would say, excuse me, because I'm in the city, know what your predator load is in the city. Don't dismiss that because you are in the city. For me, the number one predator for my chickens, and I've caught it on camera, is dogs. It's the neighbor's dogs running the property. And I do get predators at night because I do have cameras that are picking up on what's at night as well. We have raccoons, and actually last night we had a dog, believe it or not, through the night that showed up on my camera. But because we are so close to the city, and with the city ordinances being against my chickens, I don't free range my chickens like I would want to. I wish I could have my chickens in my property, because we have a fence, and I'd be able to let the girls go. And my neighbors who have chickens on their county property, they free range, and sometimes those girls will come down and make a visit to ours girls. But whenever I'm home, I open the gates and they go, and I just stand out there like the crazy neighbor watching her chickens. And I let them go for a couple hours. I'll be out there with them just watching in the evening. So that is about the extent that I could give my girls. And I wish it was more, but you do what you can with what you have.
We kind of do a little bit of both. In the wintertime, there's not much point for them being out because they're just going to get ate. But in the summertime, if I'm not busy and somebody's around to keep an eye on things, we just open up and let them do their thing. And they go in at night because that's just what they do. And the rest of the year, there's a pretty big run that they have access to. But so it's just dependent on what's going to keep them alive and happy.
Right.
Yeah. We free range. I mean, they're in a big barn, and the big door, unless it's snowing hard and blowing in, that big barn door is open at 8 a.m. every day. And they have the run of the property then and out into the cornfield and all. They're around for all day, and then at night, as dusk starts approaching, they just make their way back to the barn. We do a quick count, and okay, everybody's in here, and shut the door. They've got food in the barn all day, water in there all day, every day. So they come and go back and forth. They lay in the barn. I haven't found any mystery clutches of eggs out on the property, but they're out every day.
And last question, how is egg production? And then we'll end it at that question. Mine is great. It's finally picking up because the pullets have started laying. They took a real hit last year with everything, and they just were not right since. And then all the changes in the coop. And I think that we've finally gotten the stress in the coop down from everything. And we get about an 18 pack a day.
Mine's really good. It tends to slow down a little bit in winter, but it never stops. We always have plenty of eggs, and I don't worry about the slowdown much at all. I don't do anything special to try to get them to produce more either. I don't think I really need to. It doesn't get super cold here. There's plenty of daylight. The girls are happy. They're always producing eggs, more than we can eat for sure.
Yeah.
And so my girls are coming out of their molt, and the summer solstice is changing. I've consistently fed them a high quality chicken feed. Their food goes into grandpa's feeder so they can eat whenever they want. And they're starting to pick back up. But keep in mind, I only have 8 laying hens, and they're almost 3 years old. So they are slowing down, which is the normal thing. But I think they're doing good for having the 8.
Ours are picking up again. They were molting and they're starting to lay again. We didn't get new chicks last year, so we're dealing with an older bunch of chickens again, and we're going to have to get some fresh ones this year to kind of get things going again. And yeah, that's where we're at. Enough to eat, anyways. Eating lots of eggs. How about you, Rich?
We've had good production all winter. 60 hens through the winter. There's a couple molting at all time. A couple were molting during the winter. We've got one now that she's the saddest looking thing. Oh man. But we're right around 45 eggs a day, week in and week out. We track it all the time. I want to get for sure 3 dozen. That's what our customers want. If we got more, they'll take it. So we're getting about 3.5 dozen usable eggs every day.
Yep. Yeah, and kill it and grill it. Yep, that's what we're feeding, higher protein in the winter as well. Yeah, we're looking to add about 10 or 15 because we're doing rent-a-hen with a neighbor. So we'll be losing 3 or 4 of ours while we lease hens to them from, April to October. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes, but we're going to see what we can get. I'm just going to see what I can get in the stores for chick days versus having them shipped. As long as I can get, what do you call it? Just like I always tell Rich, the power layers versus, but I do want a few Morans. That's my one thing. So, well, I want to thank you guys for coming on tonight. I appreciate you taking the time and coming to talk about some homesteading stuff with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having us.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. Hey, Hack Creek Homestead. Well, thank you everybody in the chat for being here, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Take good care, everybody.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.